Okay, I'm gonna try this again. This is Midge Shoemaker. This is me, it's week 2, reading chapter a week of my book, Lanoya and the Teachers of Powers, Midge Shoemaker, and this is chapter 2. Okay, the palace. Oh, that's a fun symbol. Okay. A chill ran down the girl's spine, and her arms tingled. Everything here is so different. The place is so beautiful. If I could find a place to sleep, like my alley, I could draw a life here for myself. Draw a life for myself here. I would need my blanket and something to keep the wind at bay. The wall bulged out on either side of the gate. A shadowy figure emerged from the crevice it created. A man spoke. King Alfredo is not seeing anyone else this even. Come back on the morrow, son. The burly villager shoved the orphan forward. I caught this thief. Her took my leathers. I be taking her to seize the king. The sentinel rubbed his chin. A thief? I am certain the king will see her punished on the morrow. The cruel man grabbed the girl's long, tangled hair. A little annoying thief who keeps trying to get away. I'm not holding on to hers all even, so you let me take her to the king. The guard laughed. Are you sure that is a girl? It's hard to tell under all the dirt and rags it is wearing. The wily orphan dug her fingernails into the villager's rough hand until he screamed and released her hair and the rope. She took off running. Wretched, smelly man, I am not a thief. I am not going to get locked up for something I did not do. Lanoya paused and surveyed her surroundings, fighting the energy that enhanced the lines and crevices in her view. The desire to draw her surroundings intensified. I need a place to hide, somewhere I can draw and not be discovered by anyone. I know all the nooks and crannies in my village. This place is so vast and open. The trees, maybe I can hide there. The girl ran past the wagon across the path. A vague outline of trees or shadows materialized. I'm almost there. She forgot about the rope around her waist until it pulled her stomach into her back and she doubled over in pain. The guard leaned in so close his prickly whiskers scratched her cheek. That man was right about you escaping. Does that mean he's right about you being a thief, too? Tears streamed down her face, and she shook her head, unable to respond. The gruff sentinel stood up. I guess I'm stuck with you until tomorrow. You can tell your story to the king. He tugged at the rope. You can come willingly, or I will drag you. Lanoya stubbornly folded her hands over her stomach. The familiar energy that distracted her from the pain and allowed her to escape into her creations was gone. Her insides were hollow. Tears streamed down her cheeks, and she struggled to breathe. I am trapped. Nothing and nowhere to escape and sketch. I hate that stupid boy. If I see him again, I'm going to take my blanket and tie him to a wagon and watch him bounce until the light is gone. The man from the village came up to them, panting. Give hers to me. I need to take her to the king. The guard shook his head. I will find a place to lock her up for the even. You can return on the morrow, son, to see the king. The foul man growled. She best be here on the morrow, else I will tell the king you let her go. The sentinel tugged at the rope around the girl's waist, and she trudged behind him. He led her to an old door next to the gate. A spark ignited in her fingers, and she ran them along the frame. Lanoya smiled. It is not completely gone. Maybe I can still draw something. The guard pulled on the rope. That door is old and noisy. It will tell me if you try to escape. The gate is too big and heavy for you to open alone. She glanced up at him, then returned to surveying the door. I was not thinking about escaping. Should I be searching for a way out? Her insides tingled, and the lines and designs were more prominent. This place is more interesting than theirs. Inside the palace wall was a large open space. A long path led to the castle doors. Shadows of something growing on the ground and mounds instead of paths were scattered around. Another building peeked out from one side of the palace, too far away to hold her interest. The guard pulled her along the path to the palace. Yeah. The wall around it was so expansive she could not view it at all. I wish I could see things from atop that wall. The view has to be amazing. She glanced ground. The path appeared to be formed out of different shaped stones, and the shadows created curious images along the stone's path. Her energy enhanced the outlines and bushes on both sides of the stony path. Why would someone grow dark, boring bushes? The shadows cast from the fires atop the palace parapets danced around her. She was intrigued by the random images they created. This fool does not see the mystery and beauty of this place. He is like the villagers. His view of life and his surroundings is so limited. Shadows blanketed the palace grounds, gardens, and the path from the gate to the door. So much to draw, to build, to capture before the light comes and takes it all away. She shook her head. What if I'm not allowed to recreate or draw anything here? I must find a place to hide so I can sneak out in the even when no one is watching me. The man rapped on the door to the palace, and a plump, middle-aged serving woman opened it. What do you want? You know the king gave orders, no more visitors this sun. The guard growled. I need a chamber to lock this prisoner in. He placed his hand on the girl's back and pushed her inside. The dirty thief needs to be locked up until the king will see her. The serving woman pursed her lips. Dirty, yes. A thief, maybe. But a locked room is no place for a child. Besides, the king is the only one that can have people locked up. You will have to wait until the morrow, son. The man's eyes narrowed and his face reddened. She already tried to run off. I cannot keep an eye on her and the palace gates. Besides, I promised to present her to the king on the morrow, son. Therefore, I will lock her in the chamber in the back where the servants can watch her. The woman barked back at him. Those chambers are off limits. Without the king's orders, you can leave her with me. I will see to it she is cleaned and dressed for the king on the morrow, son. The man shoved the girl into the round room. You better make certain she does not disappear. I suggest you do not let her near anything you intend to keep. The guard marched back across the palace grounds. The woman smiled down at the orphan. Eustace is a fool. We will get you cleaned up, and he will not recognize you. He might become your friend. My name is Sabine, and what might your name be? The girl stared up at her. No one had asked her name before. I'm not sure what it is. I've always lived in the Alley of Thayers. The villagers call me Little Annoying Orphan. Sabine put her hands on her hips. Well, speak up. What is your name? The orphan furrowed her eyebrows and pursed her lips together. It sounds like they're saying Lanoying when they call me Little Annoying Orphan. That is not my name. Lanoya is close to that. Maybe this woman will believe that is my name. She shrugged. Lanoya? The woman smiled. Lanoya, that is a beautiful name. Did your parents tell you where it came from? She believed it is a name, and she thinks it is beautiful. It is not pretty the way the villagers say it. Sabine tapped her foot. I asked you a question. It is impolite not to answer. Lanoya scratched her head. About my name? That is what the villagers call me. I do not know if my parents left me with that name. Only a blanket in an alley. Sabine's round arms pulled Lanoya in for a hug. You poor dear. Don't worry. We will get you all cleaned up, and on the morrow, son, King Alfredo will find a nice home for you. If you are lucky, he will let you stay here with me, and I can teach you how to run a palace. She squeezed so hard, Lanoya thought her eyes would pop out of her head. I'm staying here? I can recreate all the things I saw this even? She beamed for a moment. I am meeting the king. What if he locks me up like the guard said? Her smile faded. Tears welled up in Lanoya's eyes, and she squirmed out of Sabine's arms. That guard and the mean man from the village said the king will put me in the dungeon if I stay here. Sabine placed a gentle hand on Lanoya's shoulders. Do not fret, child. There are no dungeons in the palace, only locked chambers for those awaiting to see the king. Anyone deserving a dungeon is sent away to one. The king is a nice, fair man. He would not send a child away. Be patient, and you will see. I hope she is right. I do not want to be locked in a dungeon. Sabine untied the rope around Lanoya's waist and tucked it under her apron. She led Lanoya through a maze of corridors to a tiny room in a corner. It is too late for a bath, but I will make certain you have one at first light. I will find something other than those rags for you to sleep in. Lanoya tilted her head. Rags? I do not have any rags. Sabine gasped. Oh, land, child, have you not learned that rags are worn-out old clothes that are not good for anything? Like those two small, full of holes, dirty things you are wearing? Lanoya hugged herself. Someone leaves me a new outfit each season. I have only had them for a few moons. I am not wearing rags. My trousers are nicer than the skirt I had last season. Sabine shook her head. You poor dear. You know nothing. I see I have my work cut out with you. Starting on the morrow, son, you will get some proper clothes and sleepwear, and you will learn the difference between what is worn during the sun and what is worn to sleep in. She entered the small room and opened up an old chest at the foot of the bed. She pulled out a long white gown and held it up to Lanoya. It is a bit big and not much cleaner than you are. Sabine shook her head. No, that will not do. She folded it and placed it back in the trunk. Sabine rummaged through the trunk again and pulled out a long, dark brown gown. She nodded. This will do nicely. She handed the sleeping dress to Lanoya. Put it on, dear. Lanoya pulled the garment on over her clothes. This is like a wearing a blanket. I will be so warm in the evens. She surveyed the room. It had a bed tucked in one corner and a small table with a basin of water across from it. The walls were bare, but the window was open to the courtyard. Lanoya smiled and stepped toward the window. Sabine frowned and blocked her way. You are supposed to wear the gown instead of your filthy old rags. She closed and latched the shutters. Are you going to remove your old rags? Lanoya hugged herself and shook her head. She sighed. Sabine sighed. They will be coming off at first light for your bath. She marched out of the room. Lanoya heard a click from inside the door. I do not understand why she wants me to take my clothing off, nor do I know what she thinks I will do in this room all even. She grimaced and marched over to the window. Now, to recreate the palace in the mud. Lanoya unlatched the shutters and climbed out the window. The smell of newness wafted in the air. Her body filled the walls. Her body filled with energy and excitement. Her arms shivered. The fires on the walls shot random sparks into the air. The stars sparkled in the even sky. Lanoya twirled around, enchanted by the beauty of her new surroundings. One even is all it would take to recreate this magnificent sight. The dirt around the dull bushes would be perfect for sculpting. Energy surged through her, and her fingers wiggled in anticipation. I love this sensation. It means I am going to create something wonderful. She sat down in the dirt and plucked a flower and examined it. The darkness did not prevent her mind from illuminating the prickly edges of the stem. The petals had a shadowy gray appearance in the form of a broken cup resting atop the stem. Odd-looking things. Why would anyone want this? She tried using the stem to scratch an outline of the palace in the dirt, but the ground was too firm. I think there's some water in the room. Lanoya climbed back into the room and grabbed the basin of water. It was not possible to climb through the window with the basin in her hand. She placed it on the chest, went out the window, and leaned back in for the water. Once clear of the room, Lanoya headed back to the perfect spot in the gardens. Some water spilled onto the flowers. It glistened and sparkled, the perfect reflection of the stars in the heavens. She smiled with delight. She plucked a few rows of flowers to use in her design and poured some water onto the ground. Her fingers mixed the water into the dirt until it was nice and goopy in her hands. Lanoya molded a tiny palace using the stems from the flowers to hold up the walls and the leaves to represent the windows. She dipped petals in the remaining water and placed them on the ground to reflect the stars from the even sky. Her miniature version glowed just like the real thing. Lanoya lay down and admired her work. It is magnificent, like the real thing. When it dries, I can put some wood under it and show it to Sabine. I am sure there is some wood somewhere. The light peeked around the palace. Lanoya yawned and drifted off to sleep, dreaming about her beautiful, tiny palace.